All right. Let me see if I could share my screen. Welcome, guys. I'm happy that we could do this. I didn't realize there was such interest. So I'm very happy to do this and tell you what we've been up to, which is cool. And today, there will be some drawing, but we also have some slides because, you know, if Danielle can get her hands on any slides, that's what we do. And so the question is, what the fuck to say in a BCBA interview? First of all, you're not going to say fuck. So don't do as I say, don't do as I do, okay?
I'm into that.
So today we're going to talk about, first of all, I want to tell you guys about something we've been working on, and that is, you know what SNABA is at this point, Study Notes ABA, but you might not know what Pair ABA is. Pair ABA, we've been working on it for, I think, almost the past year, and we have been helping people find jobs at companies that we're impressed by, and help individuals find jobs. It's growing, and I'll tell you more and more about it. But in general, we have a website, pairaba.com. Get it, pairing you with jobs. Yeah, there's some creativity there. And we can answer any questions you have. If you want to send to contact@pairaba.com. It's me. I just need some discrimination as to what emails are going to what place. So we will get you there too. All right. Danielle is going to be teaching part of this also. Casey's never actually been in an interview apparently because her smile just wins them over. So
I just know everyone. So there's never a time. What?
No, I was going to ask, will you say the email one more time and then I'll put it in the chat.
Oh, sure. Contact@pairaba.com. We have that. I also have like a layout one, but it's me answering that one. So just.
Okay, I got it. I just wanted to put it in the chat.
Great. So Danielle's going to start it for us.
Oh, okay. All right. Hi, everybody. If you don't know me, I'm Danielle. My love for SNABA runs deep. I was in the collective. I am a BCBA for a school district. I work part-time for SNABA, so here I am with my two favorite ladies, as always. So
Mean it.
So what's important is, right, know your demographic. Do your research. Are you going to work in a clinic? Are you going to work in school? Are you going to work in in-home? They are all so different. So you can take these who, what, where, and how questions and apply them to your setting. So I'm going to talk school first because that's where I live. I'm a BCBA in a school. So who runs it? What school district? How big is the school district? My school district, I think we have 4 feeder patterns. There are 13 campuses in each feeder pattern compared to the school district who's literally 5 minutes from us, who has 13 campuses, that's it. So I work in a very big school district. What's the age group you're going to work with? What are the services? So in a school, currently I provide indirect consult. I don't work directly. I mean, I work directly with kids, but that's how it's written in their IEP. Where are your locations? I travel all over. And then how long have they been in it? Like, what's the school district like? If it was in-home, how long have they been a company? How long have they been a clinic? Get on social media and look around, right? I know lots of people go to Reddit and do their research. But, ask around and see, what is it like? Just because somebody left there doesn't mean that it was a bad place to work. They just are very transient and love to move. So just make sure, I know that's my dog. It's like, I can't win.
Maybe you want to read this slide then.
Sorry, Casey.
Me?
It's okay. No, we just have people commenting in the thing. It's not, I hate dogs though, guys, and you know that.
I just made Ellie run take Cooper because she's literally snoring so loud. Sorry, guys.
Real perfect. They're quiet. They don't bother anyone.
Here we go. So as Danielle was just saying, you got to look up what environment you are applying to, right? You got to have some stimulus discrimination. If you are applying to a school, they're going to ask you school-specific questions. If you're applying to a clinic, they're going to ask you clinic-specific questions, right? So it's important that you know this beforehand. Also, when you just go into a company and you have no idea anything about them, it's not that impressive looking. So you want to go in with a little bit of background, right? I know Danielle really wanted this job at the school district here. She knew everything about it before she went in. I really wanted this job at STUDYNOTESABA. I learned everything about it. Same thing. No, I'm kidding. I like thought of it in my head and I knew it. But this is really important. Know where their locations are. Are they in home? Are they in clinic? And figure out what you want to know about the company. And if you don't see that information readily available, that's a great question for you to ask later. All right. As with anything, you need to practice for an interview. I am someone who I don't like to practice, but when I do practice, I am so much better. That goes for the collective, that goes for life. My attention span is very short, but if anyone was in the collective last night and you saw how good the notes were, you'd know that practice does work. So set up a mock interview with a friend, right? Have them ask you these questions, because kind of like the ethics book when you're studying for the test, I always say when I took the ethics part of the test, I remember saying, oh yeah, I know it all. Just because but then when I took the test and I asked questions, I was like, crap, right? So you kind of read through these practice questions, and unless you practice, you might think in your head that you know it, but it's different when, also with the test, when you want someone to talk it out loud, right? It's the same thing.
So this is one of those, right? If when you practice a mock interview, whoever's practicing with you can help you work through what you're trying to say instead of you stumbling through your words right in the interview. So you can stumble through the practice all you want and be like, oh, are you trying to say this? And you're like, oh, that's the word I needed. And then if you do get that question, you already have it ready to go. I probably practiced for almost 2 weeks before my interview. I did at least two mock interviews. I researched as many ABA questions as I could, school questions. I reached out to BCBA friends. My friend owns an ABA company. I said, what type of questions do you ask? Write your answers down while you're practicing so that you can really get your thoughts out and it's really clear and it's a flow. Lucky for you, your interview is probably going to be on Zoom. And so if you wanted to have a few note cards to kind of remind you like, oh, okay, this is how I do this process. If you're one of those people that kind of gets like nervous, you can have some sticky notes, but work it out with somebody, practice it. I would say I had my mom help me, my dad helped me, my sister helped me, my BCBA friends helped me. So I did lots of practice questions because they're all different and you really want to get your answers down. You're not going to be prepared for every question, but it's going to give you a better flow and you're going to be able to settle down when you know that you've practiced these questions.
Yeah. And don't just say, I'm going to talk about this right here. I'm going to talk about this. Like actually do it how you're going to respond. Mm-hmm. So if someone's like, have you ever conducted an FBA before? And I'm not going to, in the role play, be like, okay, Danielle, yeah, I'm probably going to talk about how I did it in this one school. Like practice. Like, so when I was working at my previous school, we did a lot of FBAs with our students, like actually pretend like they are the actual interviewee.
Yes. And I would say what's nice with the mock interview is that whoever's mock interviewing you is going to do like a real interview and ask you a follow-up question you weren't prepared for. So you gave them the list of questions you wanted them to ask, and then you're going to answer a certain way and they're going to be like, explain that to me. What do you mean? Or can you elaborate on that? Or what is this? So be prepared that there's always going to be a follow-up question or a clarification question to your answer.
Beautiful. All right. This is important. We're talking about a DRA here, okay? Replacement that you could do when someone asks you a question, instead of saying, I'm letting you know you're going to be thrown off by some questions.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's okay to sit there and be like, that's a great question. Yeah. That's my wonderful husband popping in. So you definitely it's okay if the question catches you off guard or if you need a minute to think about it. You can say that. Let me think about that. or that's a great question. Or you can even say, because they're asking you difficult questions. And sometimes it's hard to think of things on the spot. That's why you want to practice. Scenario questions are the most difficult to think about on the spot when they're like, tell me about a time when, and you're like, well, crap, now I can't think of any time when I did that, but you know that you did. So that's why it's important to practice those scenario questions so that you have something and that you're ready to go. So it's okay to think about your answer. Don't be like, I don't know. Well, you do know. It just, you need a minute. So give yourself that minute.
Yep. And something I've learned in class is that it's not that terrible if you swallow for a second, okay? Like, you are allowed, I know sometimes I feel that way when someone in class asks me a question, I feel like I need to like regurgitate it before there's even a 2-second latency. It's okay if you think for a second and be like, great question. You know, oh wow, you've got me thinking. Great, right? You're just allowing them to know that you heard them. It's weird when there's like just a long silence because you're like, hello, like, did you hear me? Or, right?
Response latency is really important.
Yes, response latency is super important, exactly.
But like, or you could even like be like, you know, I'm trying to recall the situation and I want to put it into the best words, right? So like, it's okay to let someone know if you're nervous too. It's okay. Like, nerves are.
You're telling them about your private event. And I always said when you're nervous, I'd be like, sorry, I'm just so excited. See, you replaced that.
I love that. I'm so excited that my palms are sweating and I'm shitting my pants, but it's fine.
Well, and if they ask you a really long question, it's okay to say, can you repeat that question? It was really long and I want to make sure that I answer it correctly. So could you repeat it for me? Because sometimes they're like, they've already interviewed multiple people, so they know the question and they're like, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, oh my gosh, that was the longest question with the most words ever. I don't even know what you just said. So it's okay to be like, can you repeat that for me? I just want to make sure that I'm understanding your question so that I can answer it for you.
Yep. All right. This is really important, especially since we've been placing a lot of people in jobs. And these are issues that I see, okay? Be transparent and reliable. It's okay to shop around. You are needed in this field. But you don't need to be like, yeah, I'm definitely taking the job. And then the next day you're like, actually, no, right? Be like, thank you so much. I'm excited about what you guys have to offer. I just want to let you know, like, I am interviewing at a few other places. But I look forward to hearing from you, set that up from the get-go. It's more of a turnoff because let's say you do want to go to that company later. If you led them on up until the end and got them hot and bothered, and then at the end you're like, oh, whoops.
Well, and helping with that, I can speak to that, helping place someone. The company was like, we already interviewed her and this was like a year ago. So they remembered. So be mindful that people do remember, because most of the people that are doing the hiring are going to be the ones that's their job. And so they're going to see your name again and be like, oh, you were an ass. And so I don't even want to bother giving you a second interview, or you ghosted us, or you didn't communicate back that you didn't want the job. So just be mindful that people don't forget.
Yeah, and you might need them later. It is a small world, the world of ABA. So also one thing, I know that I am the most casual person ever, but I want you to know, even when I would go to an interview, I could turn professional on.
I'd love to see it.
And all of you, what?
I'd love to see it.
You're going to see in a little bit.
A real pair of pants. So I would also love to see it.
I'm kidding. I love you.
Here we go. I can.
I know you can.
So this is what you can expect to see during an interview. Okay. You're going to see all different kinds, and by see, I mean, they're going to ask you all different types of questions. Now, if a clinic, this is also, let me tell you something ahead of time. If they don't ask you questions, that's also concerning, okay? I got offered a job before, and I actually gave the company feedback after. They offered me, it was like a starting job, and they were like, oh, you make $85,000 starting salary, tropical vacations, like laptop, car, whatever it is. They were telling me all this stuff about them. I'm like, oh, wow, thanks so much for sharing. It sounded super cool. It was the first job. And then when I left the interview, I was like, they didn't I worked so damn hard for this certificate or for, to be a behavior analyst. They didn't ask me one question. And I said, and at the time, Eliran barely knew any English. And I said, and I was like, that freaks me out that they didn't even check that I know anything about ABA. Like I could have been working at a nail salon the day before. And so they actually called me back. And once I told them I wasn't going to take the job, I took a lower paying job at a company that actually asked me questions. And they asked me why. And I said, it really concerned me. You guys didn't ask me one ABA question, like anything. You just sold me on the different things about the company. And that company actually reached out to me in this past year and told me that they're like, I know this is really funny. And when I started working for them, apparently because of you, the whole company's policy was changed. And it's like a really big one. And I was like, what do you mean? They're like, apparently you told them your husband, who's from another country, could have got the job. I was like, that's hilarious. I didn't even know I said that. But that's telling.
Go ahead.
I was going to say that's telling. If they don't ask you questions, realize they're in it just for the billing. Like they just need a pulse and a BCBA license, and that's concerning too.
And I have done a lot of interviews. Leah actually watched me do an interview this summer. So from being the person asking the questions, I would expect that you would more than likely get 8 to 10 questions. So go in and be thinking that you're going to get one of these types of questions, probably plus a couple of scenario-based questions, definitely a couple application questions. They're gonna ask you an open-ended question. Be ready for, tell us about yourself. Ugh, like that's like the worst question. You're getting a conflict, talk about strengths and weaknesses. They're gonna ask you types of assessment, but I would plan for 8 to 10, maybe 12 questions, depending on the level you're going in for the job.
Yes.
So it's not gonna be like a short and sweet. It's gonna be, I say at least an hour. And there's going to be probably multiple people. I would say if they're really good at their job, you would have the person that like an HR person, the clinical director, or the director of special ed, maybe the person that owns, if it's a small ABA company, the owner, probably several other BCBAs, and then maybe another, like an RBT that you could be working with. So you're going to more than likely be interviewing with a team of people, and they're going to take turns asking you different questions, and then be prepared for them there's going to be a delay because they're going to be writing down your answers because they're going to come back together as a team and they're going to discuss your answers. So just know that they're going to write down answers. They're going to come back together. So be prepared for 8 to 10, maybe 15 questions.
Perfect. All right. This open-ended question is going to come from the first second you get in there. Now they're asking you to tell them about yourself. They're also trying to get a feel of who you are. Okay. They're not asking you details that you like to smoke pot with your friends on weekends and chill and whatever you like to do. They're trying to get an overall picture of you. Like, what is this person? What someone's going to explain during this tells a lot about someone. So I didn't tell Danielle to prepare for this, but Danielle, tell me about yourself.
How did I know that I was going to be this person? Let me see. Okay. So I'm just going to interview for the job that I have. I really love being in the school setting. I was a paraprofessional for 2 years in a emotionally disturbed unit. I was a special education teacher in a self-contained classroom for students with autism for 5 years. And I was a program support person for high-functioning students with autism for 2 years. And so students with autism are my love language, and I do truly love to support them. I have 2 kids and a husband and dogs. And I'm a BCBA.
Wow. That's great. So can I ask you, it's going to follow up with this. What made you get into the field of BA?
That is a great.
I always love to hear someone's story. It's always fascinating to hear how someone fell into ABA.
That's a great question. So I had a very difficult student, challenging student, my very first year as a teacher. and I had an exceptional BCBA come into my classroom. And what made her exceptional was that she took the time to explain to me what ABA was and how I use it every day and in my classroom. And so with that, I was able to see success with my student. And by the end of my first year, I had applied for my master's program and started my process to become a BCBA.
Awesome. All right. Next question.
Do I get to ask you this one?
Sure. I didn't prep, but yeah.
You want me to ask you?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay. So tell us about a time you had a conflict or disagreement with a coworker. Also, could you tell us what did you do to resolve that issue? And if you couldn't come to a resolution, what would you make a final decision anyway? What if you couldn't come to a resolution, would you make a final decision anyway? Okay, that wouldn't be my second part of the question, but I'll go with it.
I don't
Great. So, this is a great question. Let me think for a second.
If you would like for me to repeat the question, I am happy to do so.
Oh no, I got it. It's in front of me. Thank you. I'm just kidding. So, actually I remember my first BCBA job I took. I remember going into a clinic and the company had, the clinical director was actually an RBT. And so I remember going in and I was trying to, get to know everyone, introduce myself. And I remember that, the director, or who had been running the clinic before, I think maybe was a little intimidated that someone was coming, potentially taking her spot, which I didn't intend on doing at all. But I saw the way some things were running at the clinic, and I noticed, I noticed that, it didn't seem like really quality care as to what the programs they were writing for these individuals, or actually doing assessments, and how they were keeping the client's data organized. So that's a lot to go in from day one to notice. So I remember really just in the beginning, really listening about how they did things, really trying to pair with this person I could tell really didn't like me from the get-go. And, I was trying anything, want to get a coffee, you want to do this, whatever it was to, just kind of create a relationship. Then I remember saying, I'm a little concerned how we are organizing. I first asked her to explain how they were doing it, to make sure that I didn't just, assume that they weren't doing things right. And, I think part of it was that she wasn't a BCBA, so she didn't know the regulations that we have to stick to with our license. So what I did the best was to explain to her, what we have to do to be practicing within our what I was competent in, and as a BCBA, what I would, need, what I would feel comfortable signing off on. So I went through this with her. I had to be honest, she was not that happy or receptive. But at that point I knew that, as a BCBA, I have, an ethical code to uphold. I have, the client's success and, importance of running their programs. It's what matters the most. So I had to tell her, I like some of the ideas you've done, but I just think we could do it better if we do this. And ultimately I had to make that decision as someone knowing what actually needed to be done for the company. It was definitely difficult, especially going into a new job, but we made it work.
Awesome, thank you.
So is it common for an RBT to be the clinical director? I'm so confused.
No, not at all. That's not at all. So
not that also, RBTs are our lifeblood, but that's not I'm so
yeah. Confused. So yeah, but I didn't know this before I started. They didn't tell me. They didn't call her the clinical director, but she was. So what I'm saying is, there's things like this. If I would have known that from the interview,
that's a good question though for you to learn to ask in an interview.
Yeah, so it kind of tells you who runs this? Exactly, who runs this? Is this BCBA run? Is it, because I know Casey, you've even said from jobs you've had that it's different when it's a business person running the company and not a BCBA. They don't have the same
Well, my
obligation.
company was run by two like social work people, like marriage and family therapy, were the owners. And when I came on as a clinical director as a new BCBA, there were so many things where I'm like, this does not line up with my ethical code. And it was a lot of conflict because they were like, well, it matches with our ethical code and our ethical code isn't as strict. I'm like, but it's my license on the line, my certification. So we're going to agree to disagree. And I had to leave that job because they weren't going to budge with the fact that I wasn't going to do things that was unethical on my code. Doesn't mean it was their code, but it was my code, which is a hard thing to compete with two different, people's codes.
So definitely during the interview, listen out for those things they're saying. You might hear things along the way of like, yeah, I mean, they're going to tell me this, that our director's an RBT. Like, but if you do hear something along the lines, that should be a red flag to you right then. You don't need to argue with them. You could just leave and be like, okay, thank you. Like at the end, All right.
Love you, mean
Here's
it.
a great.
I feel like Casey would be a great, since she's never been in an interview. Casey, what are some strengths and weaknesses that you have?
So I would say a couple of my strengths are going to be the fact that I work really, really, really hard. I put my best self forward as much as I can. I am always on time, and I like to say if you're not 5 minutes early, you're late. I have a giant heart, and I care so much about my clients that their best, their socially significant goals, their treatment plans are the most important things to me, and I take that very seriously. Definitely a weakness that I might have is that I overcommit, and I am not great at setting boundaries when it comes to what I'm able to take on my caseload, for sure.
Okay, so
Okay,
talking
first of
about
all, guys,
wait, you have a question? I have a question for her too.
no, I want to point out what she did really well. Then you could ask the question.
Okay.
What she did really well is, first of all, she threw in some ABA words without, or showing that she has some knowledge of what we're talking about. Like being a BCBA, she said, socially significant. She's not trying to drop every Cooper book word she knows because that makes you an asshole and annoying, okay? She's saying something in the treatment plans, talking about the clients. Let me tell you, when you talk about weaknesses, you're not actually gonna say, this is a trick question, okay? You're not gonna be like, I suck at time management and I never show up somewhere on time. You're gonna pick things that are strengths that could be seen as weaknesses because you're such an overachiever, okay? So like, oh, I can't set boundaries. I just love work so much that sometimes I just wanna keep working. They're like, yes.
I'm going through a divorce because I work too hard.
Well, I would say here's where people, okay, so in your interview, they're always looking for keywords. They're always, and I know that we have a slide on this, but like, so she drops some ABA words. Yes, those are keywords. Okay, so I know she knows her stuff. Oh, she's talking about that she is a hard worker. Okay, that's good to know. Okay, so it only really sounds like she may need to work on boundaries. That's something we can totally be coachable on. So they would know going in, hey, this is something that she needs to work on. I think she would be a great partner with this person, and they can help her be successful in this area that she needs to grow.
And are you kidding? They would love someone who has no boundaries. This is ABA, after all.
Truth.
Give me all the cases.
All right. This one's very important. And I talk about this a lot in class. So someone could ask me it and I'm going to tell you, well, I mean, anyone could say their answer, but I'm going to tell you how you should be answering this, okay? And don't lie.
No.
When they ask you what assessments are you familiar with running, okay? I don't need you before the interview memorizing every type of assessment that's out there. Like, oh, I do a VB map, I do a Vineland, I do it, AFLS, I do PEAK, I do this, I do that, I do that. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool, you can name them all. And you are probably assuming like, oh shit, everyone else knows how to do all these other ones they talk about. Most people don't, okay? Like I think I've literally run one FA in my life. I know how to do it. I mean, I also teach it. But in general, be honest. Like, the clinic I worked at was very into the VB map. It was an early childhood, very into verbal behavior. I know a little bit about AFOLs and ABLs. I've seen them a little bit. I would definitely love to get more proficient in, running them. Say this. Everyone assumes that everyone else knows every type of assessment. And just because you read about it in the Cooper book, taking the test is very different than what you got to practice before. You might even say something like, as an RBT, I was doing a lot more direct services. So I didn't get the opportunity to do as many assessments as I'd like, but I would love the opportunity to learn more.
And again, I think that's a good point for you to come in with, like, maybe not a weakness, but so I've, had experience with my supervisor who ran the Vineland, and I helped score it. I have not myself ran it on my own, but I'm a dedicated to learning and with some supervision. And that's a really big question. I don't know if you guys have it in here, but what is their onboarding, right? Like, if you're a brand new BCBA and they're like, we have no onboarding or supervision for you, I would run so fast that, like, it would be a marathon, because you need, and we have to admit, you just passed your very green BCBA, and you should not, I'm truly saying this in the best possible way. I made the mistake. I accepted a clinical director job day one of a BCBA because I'd been there for 6 years, right? And it was a natural progression. It didn't mean I had the skills to become that, or all of a sudden be the boss of all my people I had been on the same level with, right? Yeah, they threw me a lot of money and bonuses and all this stuff, and it was the worst thing I've ever done. And I had to admit that I did not have those skills yet. It wasn't in my scope of competency, right?
Well, and so for me, I have supervision, but that's not called what it's called in the school district. So I have a mentor that's been a BCBA for a while. She's also new to my school district. So it's like a trade-off. I am her mentor for how we run things in the school district, because I've been there for 10 years, but she is my mentor, and I go to her and I'm like, okay, tell me this, what about this? I have this question. And we just sat down and had a really honest conversation. And that's what you can ask. Like, how are your BCBAs at delivering supervision? Because that was one of my questions to her. I was like, I don't need some asshole forgetting that they were once a new BCBA. And so, like, I need to be able to work with you and know that you're not going to judge me for my questions. So, but yeah, so don't make stuff up. Because, like, I work at a school, so we have diags. I am so spoiled when it comes to assessments, because the diagnostician does all of that for me. Besides, I can do a VB map. That's about the only assessment that I have done in a school, because everybody else does it for me.
And I worked at the clinic, so I know how to run the VB map, the Vineland and Peak. Those are my ones. And Peak is the one that I was most familiar with and I had done the most research on. So everyone's different.
Yes.
Right, exactly. All right, now I have the next question.
Oh.
All right, this question is for, who should I give it to in here? Maybe I actually see it. I think I saw Sarah in here. Do you want me to put you on the spot? I picked someone random.
Sure.
Okay.
She's always down. She's one of our tutors, guys.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Sarah.
I probably look like crap right now, but I'm going to answer this
I
question.
think we're hot.
I've got like
Here
the
we go.
worst pimples in the world right now. We're good.
Here we go.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm going to ask you a question, okay?
Mhm.
Hopefully I wrote this right. Jake's your 3-year-old client. His mom, Mary, is adamant that he needs to learn how to use the potty independently. You provide mom with a potty training protocol, which includes having her antecedently ask Jake if he needs to use the potty, deliver, that's not meant to be a comment, deliver reinforcers, prompts, and record the instance as a success or not. You go back to supervise the next week and you see that Mary has taken no data and she's still complaining about how annoying it is that he can't be like a normal 3-year-old and use the damn toilet. What would you do?
So I would ask her if she had implemented the interventions that she was supposed to keep track of. If that was what she was trying to do, then was she able to take data? If she was not taking any data, I can't tell her what was going wrong in that situation. So I'm going to try and get a feel for what was feasible for her, what's not feasible. So there could be a million different things that happened at that point, but I want to see why there was no data taken, because if there's no data, I can't take anything from that situation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and ask her, was there too much to handle in that situation? If she couldn't take the data, then that means she was probably busy with something else, or maybe she felt like she couldn't handle a screaming 3-year-old who doesn't want to go to the bathroom and he's peeing on the floor and shitting on the carpet. So
And she's like,
you're
Data,
gonna,
fuck you, Data. Like, I don't give a shit. I have to like get my kid on the toilet.
I can't take this data at the same time. I can't take this data either immediately after because she's really tired. So how can you make that situation more simple for her to be able to intervene upon that behavior and easy to take data?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's great. We need to
Easier
remember
for the parent.
that parents, I mean, after Casey babysat her niece and nephew today, Casey's like, I'm rethinking this whole.
Okay, you guys, I just have to sidetrack. I always shit on my sister for being a stay-at-home mom, and not in a bad way, but like she doesn't work and she hasn't worked. And this is a long story. And if you listen to the podcast, you'll know all about it. But anyways, I always say, you need a job. My mom takes care of the kid. Like, you need to get a job. I had the two of them, a 10-year-old and a 7-month-old today. I'm never having children.
Girl, those aren't your kids. That's completely different. Because
Girl. Anyway, sorry, sidetrack. No, but really though, it is so hard, and I see it now. I saw it. I was like, wow, there is a lot parents have to do. So like when I'm strict with my nephew who's 10 years old, I have him here twice a week, and I'm like this auntie boot camp. I think it's so easy because, I can set these rules and these clear things, but I don't have a 7-month-old who's screaming her head off to take care of and set his rules.
And you let him go home at the end of the day. Like when it didn't work out today, you drove him home.
Yeah.
So I think during an interview, to bring this all around, is really important what Sarah said. Like, let's figure out why this isn't working for you. I mean, also, while we're doing that, I would want to say, like, kind of just letting them know as to like the rationale. Like, same when we do behavior skills training, like the rationale. Like, I know potty training can be so annoying, and I feel you because it's so intensive, but I want you to know it's one of those things that all it takes is for them to do it a few times, and the hard work really pays off because now you are done having to clean diapers, right? Just reminding them what's in it. And as Sarah said, she said, what can we do to make this easier for you? Showing that sensitivity is huge.
Right. So if I was going to be the person asking this question, these would be my keywords that I would be looking for. You're looking for compassion. You're looking for making adjustment because it is a parent. It doesn't say like, oh, it's only her one kid, regardless if it's one kid or no kids. If you, as a mom, if you come and try to tell me my business as a mom and you have no kids, boop, bye. I don't have time for that. So being compassionate, talks about changing the data system to best fit her needs, helping her understand the benefit. So I'm looking for these words that are like, oh, okay, she gets it. She's going to understand how to work with this mom who's really struggling. And so those are those things that, be mindful of, that they are looking for those keywords.
And then I have one more. Go ahead. I have one more note, but like, so like, even if it's not too difficult, like you have those parents who maybe even don't have the time or think that just the interventions are like, they don't have that buy-in. So like, even just going and talking to them about, hey, we need to be able to do this because this is what's going to get you to that mastery criteria, that goal that you want to reach for your child. You want them to be potty trained, but even if it's not a lack of skill,
but get cut off.
A buy-in. Go ahead.
Oh no, you got cut off for a second. Sorry.
Yeah, so the buy-in on everything too. Like if you have a parent that doesn't believe that like ABA is working and they're not completing it, like you might have both of the parents there and one parent is doing the interventions and one parent isn't. So I think just being able to show that all of those factors that may come into play, and make it as easy as possible. Like we do that for our clients, like make it as easy as possible for them.
Awesome. All right. Thank you. Great. All right.
I like this.
This is a simple question, but I had to write it. How soon can you start? Danielle, Casey, anyone?
Well, I would, if I, go ahead.
Question, right? Oh, sorry, Case. I'll
I
talk
was
about
gonna say it depends on if you have a job. So like if I already was employed, it would be more respectful that I say I need to give my current job X amount of notice. And as a BCBA, that's not a 2-week notice, okay? You're not in a restaurant, you're not working as a bartender, right? You have caseloads, you have families' lives in your hands. So I would say a month would be my notice. That might be a long time, but I would say respectfully to the place I'm working now, because that makes you more respectful for them, where they're like, oh wow, she was dedicated enough to her job she's in, right, to give a month's notice to transfer. And if they can't take that, then I don't know, the company might not be the best fit.
Yep, that is the trick question. It says a lot. If someone is willing to leave a job within 3 seconds, they would do the same for your company. So this seems like a really simple question, but there's a lot they're looking at in there. If someone was like, yeah, but I'm sure I could find coverage in the next like week or something. It's like,
No.
creepy.
Well, let's
If
just
you don't-
say that it's a transition time and you don't even have an ABA related job and you just have a job. You still need to say, I need to give my current job 2 weeks. And your job may let you go before then. And if they offer the job, you can come back and say, hey, they told me I don't need to stay the full 2 weeks. I can go ahead and start. But you still need to be, that's still what they're listening for. Like, well, we don't want you to jump ship and be like, bye, and then be gone in 3 days. We want adequate notice so that we can make sure that everything gets transitioned easily. So that's another thing that they're looking for, those keywords. 2 weeks, a month, you're transitioning people.
You know what? It's okay to ask too. And I didn't interview, but I went to like another agency to like get information. She was actually my professor. And the thing that I asked was, what is my caseload going to be when I come on? What is expected of me immediately, right?
We're getting there. We're
Oh,
getting
darn.
there.
Okay, good. Yay.
We're getting there. Thank you for
that.
the foreplay.
You're welcome.
Next slide. It's a two-way street. You got to interview them too. All right, Casey just said that. What size would what's the average caseload? Okay. You need to ask these questions too, because it shows that you know a little bit what you're doing too. Okay. So Casey said, if they tell you your caseload is 35 students, run. Okay. Like run. Say thank you and run. If they give you more an answer along the lines of, it really depends on the amount of hours each student has, we try to keep it, under 15, whatever it is. That sounds better to me, right? And but they're looking that it depends on like what each client, like if one client has so many hours, you can't have as many.
You know
right?
what the best answer would be? If they looked at the BACB's ethical guidelines for caseloads and they said that, right?
What is it? I just need to know.
There's like a whole a booklet, right, on like organizations and professionalism and caseloads. And it's like, if you have, I don't know the exact numbers off my head, but if you have like, they call it 2 different things, like high intensity caseload or low intensity caseload of how much they need. So it's like, if it's a high intensity, I think it goes 8 to 12. Low intensity means they need less hours. It might be like 12 to 18. I'm throwing numbers out, but that's the BACB guidelines for ethical amount of caseload that you can take on as a BCBA.
There was a good question on like, what is an appropriate caseload? That's going to depend on where you work. Because so like there's 5 of us BCBAs in my school district. I have 8 kids. One BCBA has 16. One BCBA has 4. One has 6 and one has none. So it all depends on what does that look like. And then like it could be my friend owns a company, an ABA company, and it is based on area, right? So how far is she asking you to drive compared to where you live? And what does that look like for you also? So that's part of it. So finding out all of that information, ask about your team. Are you going to be the only BCBA if you're at a school district? Do you have a team of BCBAs? Are there RBTs in the school district? Will there be supervision for RBTs? So I go in with questions to ask so that you don't have to go home and wonder and be like, oh, what about that? What about, well, if that happens, I don't really want to take the job. So be prepared. And it's okay to go ahead and be like, hey, I have some questions right here on my phone or in my purse, and get them out and ask them those questions.
Perfect. Great. So these are some questions you might want to ask. Do you have opportunities for professional development? The fact that they value that is important, right? That they care for you to keep growing as a BCBA. Are there opportunities to grow within the company? For them, they'll also be impressed because they're like, oh, she's looking to stay around. Cool. What does your training look like? That's important, right? Are these going to throw me in there, throw me to the wolves, or is there some kind of training? I know I'm a BCBA, but I've never been a BCBA before, right? And every company does things differently, even if you have been a BCBA before. What does your training look like twice? So I really meant it. Things such as, what data taking system do you use? Pen and paper or pencil, right? Just things so you could familiarize yourself, and it's showing that you know about these different areas.
I would definitely ask, what does your insurance billing look like? What am I responsible as a BCBA for billing insurances? Is there a company that you partner with that is electronically taking data? Is there an HR department that is doing all the codes, right? The CPT codes that are really crazy to keep up with. What responsibility as a BCBA do I have to bill insurances? Other than my session notes and taking my data and some insurance re-auths, how much help do I have? And if they don't have answers to that one, again, run. Because that is your license, your certification on the line for billing. If they say, oh, you do your own CPT codes, you do all that, and you're a new BCBA and you're like, I don't even know what CPT code means. Like, no. Okay, they need some kind of like, let's say Central Reach or AccuPoint or something that the company has, or they're well established in this pen and paper and they have an amazing bookkeeper and they've been around for 20 years and they're still running it the old way. That's great, but they have to have a track record that says, yes, that all this is taken care of. How do I get credentialed? Do you help me get credentialed as a new BCBA? What are the steps that go into that? That's a long process as well, right? That application process. And again, I'm saying this because when I was the clinical director, I had to do all this on my own and it was psycho. So,
and there was a good question in the chat about, right, we have COVID. So what does telehealth look like? And is someone going to be able to provide me the training for telehealth?
Yeah.
So finding out that type of information. Because I will say, even in a school district, if you have direct time with a student, you provide telehealth.
Yeah, CEUs would be the professional development. That's
awesome.
awesome.
Yeah. Also asking about supervision. How often do they have their BCBAs go out?
Oh, that's a good question. Like, how often are they having you do that?
Or like how long you're doing supervision and how often during a month or even a week, because I found that like a lot of companies will not really track that and their RBTs don't get enough support. So there's not enough training and then there's a big snowball after that.
Yeah, that needs to be built in for sure.
Great point. Yes, and there are questions you're going to want to ask about COVID.
Well, and I think another good question that we don't have on here is we always talk about we have an ethical code. So talking with them about if you are, like Casey said, if your company is owned by a non-BCBA or you work in a school district, they don't have the same ethical code. So talking with them about what do I do if I feel like this is a violation of my ethical code? What are your expectations for when that happens, and how do I communicate that to you?
Perfect.
And I think a big thing, the supervision standards are changing in 2022, but if you start as a new BCBA, even nowish in 2021, and you start taking on a caseload, right, to supervise RBTs, guess what? If you don't have a full year's experience in 2022, you're no longer able to supervise. So it's actually best practice now to practice not supervising until you have a year experience because, and I know your job's going to be like, right? But like that is going to go into effect, and hopefully your job knows that, right? That if you don't, right now you probably would have a year experience when it came up to there, but as we get closer to the time, if you don't have a year experience, you have to wait a year before you can do any supervision. Which I think is a mistake. We shouldn't be supervising right away. We need to be supervised right away.
All right. Things to remember. Smile. This sounds so basic, but like this is soft skills 101. Like when you go in, like I'm creeped out by someone in the first second if I can't get them to smile. Like I'm like, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah.
Right? So like if they can't smile at me, I can't imagine what a parent's gonna think of them.
Well,
Right?
and luckily it's a Zoom, right? So you could write yourself some sticky notes to remind you, relax, smile, breathe, be confident. And you can put those all around your screen because they're not gonna see them. And that'll just kind of help you relax. Go into your interview and gas yourself up. This is my favorite. I got made fun of it for it earlier today, but I am all about it. Like call your friend. They're going to be like, you're a bad bitch. You know what you're talking about. You can do this and this and this and this, and you've done all these things, right? So gas yourself up. You got it. They wouldn't have set the interview with you if they didn't see something in your resume that they felt was important, that they wanted to give you the opportunity to do that. It's going to be a Zoom. So turn your phone off. Go in a quiet space.
Get rid of your dogs.
Get rid of your dogs. I know, they're just assholes. So remove all your distractions. I have two little kids, and when I did my interview, you better believe I withheld their iPad for 2 days until it was time for my interview. And I was like, ta-da, look what I have. And they were like, and they didn't come out for an hour and a half until I had to actually come and get them, like, okay, I'm all done. And they were like, oh, you are? I don't know what happened. So set yourself up for success for that. And then make sure you're thinking about those keywords, and then drop some of those ABA words, but also drop some of those words that that let them know that you're a good communicator, and that you have soft skills, and that you do have feelings, and that you know your audience. Me and another BCBA have this conversation all the time. Like you can say all the ABA words that you want to as a teacher, but they're teachers. And if they don't have the same love for the principles that we do. So know your audience and make sure that you're delivering the information that that they can. So it's just important. Do your research, people.
Did you guys see that funny joke I did there? Because Danielle said gas herself up and I didn't know what it meant.
I just skipped right on over it, planned ignoring all the way.
Don't gas up the room.
You can if it's on Zoom. You can do all the farting you would like. Just quietly.
Yes. All right. And refer to your own resume. It's there.
Yep.
Like, it's not weird if you look back at it. Like, not everyone remembers every exact date they worked, and it just like refreshes you if they ask you any questions about a certain job. All right. This is really important because this is your antecedent intervention. Does your resume kind of suck? Okay. And I don't mean this in a mean way, but I see a lot of resumes and I see words like behavior spelt wrong. I see words like, I'm like, why are there 3 lines skipped here? They wrote the same thing for all the different job descriptions. Your interview is your Tinder profile pic. Okay. If it's not good, I'm not going to take it any further. I'm going to swipe left. So please make sure your resume is quality. And I really mean this. And it's not necessarily make you better because you have 7,000 bullet points under each area, right? You want to show what you have, get their attention without losing it, right? Did you see what I did here? If you need your resume repaired.
Like it, looks good.
We got you. So with Pair ABA, I've been getting a lot of people's resumes. So we could either help you find a job if you need, or if your resume sucks, we started fixing resumes because like your resume, is really important.
Well, I think what's also important is you've already looked at your resume 1,000 times. So it doesn't matter how many times you're going to read it, you're going to miss the same error over and over again because you are looking at it. So letting someone else have their eyes on it and making sure that it's formatted and all of the commas are in the right place.
Oxford comma.
Oxford
That's
comma.
the beneficial piece is that, you know, because this is truly your Tinder profile. I've sat where we've pulled people's resume and said, oh, no, done. Nope. Okay, I like her. She has this experience. She has this. Oh, I like how this is set up. Oh, this is easy to read. So it truly is, when it comes down to it, your introduction before they even lay eyes on you of who you are and the things that you have accomplished in your career.
Yep. I feel this.
Is there a sample resume that we can share?
I'm sure I could look for one somewhere.
Or Reddit has a resume page and people post their resumes for others to review. Yeah, this will go to the YouTube, yes.
And I was going to talk, somebody made a comment about imposter syndrome. I know this doesn't not, but this goes with gassing yourself up. I swear to you, every day I wake up and I say, I don't know what I'm doing, but this is why you have friends. This is why you have friends and you call them and you say, I don't know what I'm doing. And they go, yes, you do know what you're doing. You're really great at this, and this. And then I'm like, well, I need help. And they're like, okay, because that's why we have friends. And that's why we have a tribe of people to go and help us gas ourselves up when we feel like we don't know what we're doing. But here's the news. You wouldn't be interviewing for this job if they didn't feel like you knew what you were doing, or you wouldn't be getting the job if they didn't feel like you knew what you were doing. So use your friends to remind you that you know your shit and you got it. And it's okay to not know everything. You're brand new. So I remind myself that on the regular, like, oh,
and guys, want a real life story real quick about me? I have imposter syndrome so hard, and I had it when I got that first clinical director job, and I puked every day, and I had the worst anxiety. I had to put myself on meds. I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I trained when I was leaving. I gave them a month and a half notice, and I trained a man with 25 years experience as a BCBA. And I'm like, this is perfect. This is what you guys need. Like, I'm telling you that you need someone with experience, not me. And within 3 weeks, they called me and they were like, yeah, you're right. His resume is amazing. Guess what? I was doing a better job than he did as a brand new green BCBA, thinking I was sucking every single day. And it was my soft skills, I think, that pulled me through when he didn't have them. And families hated him, staff hated him, and they had to let him go within like a month. And so that made me feel like, okay, I still felt like I had no idea, but I guess I was doing something right. So even if you think you're not, dig deep into those things where you are probably doing way more than you think you are, right? I didn't realize my staff would reach out and be like, we miss you so much just because we could talk to you and you had an open door policy. And I was just in there because I was crying in my office, so it was open. No, I'm just kidding. But you know what I mean? So it's okay. We all feel that way.
Yes, and I would say if you are gonna work on, if you are gonna work on something, we know you know ABA, work on your soft skills. You need to be able to communicate efficiently. You need to be able to handle a conflict. You need to be able to talk people down when they are escalating. And so I think that's really important in 2020 is that, do you have soft skills? Because if you don't have soft skills, you're probably not going to get hired because they're going to be able to tell. And two, like you have to be able to communicate this information in a way that people are going to receive it and take it and love it and grow from it. And if you don't have soft skills, that ain't going to happen. So really work on it. There's some really great books out there to help you like build your soft skills, which will be good for your resume also.
All right, guys, please, for the sake of organization, any questions that are related to finding jobs or your resume, please, and for Casey's sake.
Thank you.
That's ABA.
Oh,
Please send questions to contact@pairaba.com. We will get it. We will respond to you there. We just need to have them in separate, beautiful places.
yes.
Because no other part of my life is organized.
I think somebody made a comment about they just got I feel like rejected is a harsh word. Maybe they went with someone with more experience than you and not necessarily got rejected. So I feel like that's always a good learning opportunity to reach out and be like, hey, I know that you went with someone else. Could you provide me with some feedback so that I can grow from this experience? I think it's okay to reach out and ask for that.
We love feedback. Everyone does. And well, hopefully in this field we do, because you know how important it is. And how
All
hard.
right, guys. If you are having difficulty looking for a job wherever it is you live, free of charge, we will help you, connect you to locations that we know about if we have any jobs. I can't promise that we will in different areas. And we've done a little bit of research on the companies. And anything you need, you could go to pairaba.com. That is pairaba.com for this. And you know study notes for this.
I'm actually going to send my resume to Pear.
All right, guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Do you guys have any questions for us that we could answer? Stop sharing.
Stop recording.
I have a stupid question to ask.